Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to first begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me. This is the second time I'm speaking. The first time was online during COVID. So it's very nice to be here. And now I'm a Hyderabadi since last year. So it's even better to be here as a Hyderabadi speaking to you. So let me start by, I used to live in Bangkok. And let me see, are you able to see that? Well, we'll see how it goes. So there's a thing that if you've been to Thailand, people say same, but different. Which means, we are similar, but we're actually different. And that's the core of my thesis, moving away from geopolitics to a very sublocal theme. Since I now live in South India, I think I should work on South India. And what I want to say is that we have an existential crisis in this country that has to do with deepening of division in many dimensions between the peninsula, which I define as the 5 southern states. I exclude my own state, Maharashtra, and for obvious reasons, Gujarat, and the Great Indian Plain, which is the rest of North India. But that difference can be bridged, but one of the problems in bridging it is, in fact, what South India shares in common with North India, with the Great Indian Plain. Hence, same, but different. Let me elaborate that. So this is India, faithful borders of Kashmir here. No one can dispute it, okay? The Great Indian Plain, roughly, is everything above the Tropic of Cancer. And when I refer to the Great Indian Plain, I'm using it to stop using words like North India and South India. And when I refer to the peninsula, I'm referring to the 5 coastal states of South India, of southern India, okay? So let's look at the differences. Every state in the peninsula, including Andhra Pradesh, which is the poorest, has a per capita income per person, which is at least double that of any Great Indian Peninsula state if you exclude Delhi. Delhi is a bubble, it's a courtier city, so leave that aside. Yeah. In fact, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, the 2 most prosperous South Indian states, are equal to, not even close to now, Indonesia in terms of per capita income. It's about, Indian average is about $2,600, $2,700. These 2 states are at about $4,500. But UP and Bihar are poorer than Nepal, the country we all love to talk about as sending immigrants here and whatnot. And of course, much poorer than Bangladesh. Okay, Bangladeshi immigrant, well, sorry, they're richer than you as a country. HDI, life expectancy, health, education, attainment, poverty ratios in Tamil Nadu and Kerala are equal to a developed country, many developed countries. Think of Czechoslovakia, Romania, that level of human development. South India taken as a whole, definitely equal to upper middle income countries. There's no state in South India which has human development, health, education, literacy, infant mortality, maternal mortality worse than Turkey, which is almost a developed country, yeah? But if you take North India, if you take the Great Indian Plain, the indicators are comparable to Afghanistan, Burkina Faso, which is a country you don't need to worry about, except the human development indicators are very bad. The Central African Republic, another country you've probably never seen on the map, but has terrible human development indicators. So you have a disparity not just in income, but also in the quality of human resource development and the conditions of life between the North and the South. That is of non-marginal, that is gigantic proportions. We are here talking in hundreds of %, both in human development and in income, okay? In fact, going with my previous speaker, it's like India and China. The Great Indian Plain is bigger than the peninsula only in population and fertility. I believe we have now surpassed China, hence. Whereas, just like China, the peninsula is better than the Great Indian Plain on every other count. You pick something, economic or socio-economic, well, most socio-economic things that are measured to measure socio-economic prosperity, the peninsula is better, much better. So in that respect, the kind of difference you see between India and China, you're seeing the same magnitudinal difference between the peninsula and the Great Indian Plain today. Why does this matter? Because population matters politically. And you may be aware of this, we have our parliament does not represent fairly the population of our country according to where they live. The South, that is the peninsula, has far more representation in parliament than its population would warrant. And the Great Indian Plain has far less representation in parliament than its population would warrant. If you change that, which is what delimitation, which is now a parliamentary requirement imminently, is supposed to do, and you do it per population, which is how the Constitution defines representation, then the ratio of peninsular seats, the 5 southern states, to GIP, that is the North Indian states, will fall dramatically. For example, today AP plus Telangana is half of UP. After the census and after the delimitation based on that census, it will be a quarter of UP. Put another way, a combination of UP, Bihar, and any one other Great Indian Plain state, any state, will effectively provide a permanent majority in the Lok Sabha. A permanent majority in the Lok Sabha. So you have this economic difference where the South is prosperous, but politically, the North is powerful and getting more so if you look at delimitation. This is, I think, an existential crisis. Okay? Because unlike China, India, this is where it breaks down. China is both politically more powerful and economically more prosperous than us. But that's not true of South India and North India. Now, I want to point out to you, historically speaking, this is a very rare situation. If you look at any other federalist polity, where people are poor, not many people live there. In the US, it's New York, California, right? Illinois, which are rich. Not many people live in Mississippi and South Dakota. If you look at Australia, people live in the coastal provinces, not in the center, which is relatively poor. If you look at Brazil, they live in Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, right? Rio de Janeiro. They don't live in Salvador and Bahia. The majority population lives here. In the EU, there's relatively poor countries, the city countries, I call them, Greece and Portugal and all these countries. Nobody lives there. People live in the UK, in France, in Germany, and in Italy. The G7 members, and those are the most powerful countries in the UK. There is no country I've found, Spain is a test case, I'm watching it carefully, in the history of the world since the Second World War, where you have this conjunction that we have in India, a politically powerful North and an economically powerful South. And the two countries which had it in the past, both don't exist anymore. The former USSR and the former Yugoslavia, where they did have the majority population living in poorer provinces, the minority living in richer provinces. That conjuncture was not politically sustainable. Those nations have ceased to exist. Therefore, I say to you, this is an existential problem. This is not a joke. This is a very serious problem that we are facing. And politically, I think many political leaders in the South are aware of it. They perhaps are not able to cope with it in the way that they ought to, for reasons I cannot go into in this talk. But nevertheless, I think we should all be aware, sitting in Hyderabad, sitting in the peninsula, that this is an existential crisis. Now, I'm a policy guy. I don't provide crises to you. I could spend, if I was an academic, I'd spend the rest of this talk providing you with data. I dislike data, so I'm going to go straight to solutions. If you have questions on what I've said, factually, I'm happy to take them up. But let me go to solutions now. But let me do the takeaway. You see, the trouble is, when the majority parts of a country are economically more prosperous than the minority parts of a country population-wise, that is, the majority population lives in greater prosperity than the minority, then the majority can subsidize the minority perpetually. That's what happens in Australia. That's what happens in Japan. That's what was happening for a long time in the EU and still happens in large measure, right? It can't happen the other way. And therefore, we are bound to have existential conflict very, very soon if this state of affairs continues. Therefore, a solution, a political solution is imperative. And let me present to you the possibilities. I think there are 3 scenarios for political convergence, okay? I'm an Indian, I want convergence. I'm pointing out to you a clear and present danger to our country. And in that spirit, I need us to take that seriously. Not denial. Please do not repeat the Battle of Panipat again in our contemporary lifetime. Okay? Do not be in denial. This is serious. I think there are three things that can happen. The first is that the income of which is my preferred solution, the income of the north of the Great Indian Plain grows faster than the income of the south from now on, so that there is economic convergence, right? This would be ideal. And that is what, in fact, economics, envisages. That where labor is cheap, where capital is scarce, labor and capital will move there, and there'll be convergence and equalization. This may have worked 15 years ago. But now we have a 300% differential in per capita income, and the quality of human capital is so different that moving this needle is going to take a very long time. A very, very long time. It's not going to happen in the lifetimes, I think, of most of the people in this room. Okay? But still, if you are able to come up with a long-term strategy to do this, which everyone buys into, and I'm looking here very carefully at the next Finance Commission, then we can possibly have a national grand bargain, where we can say, okay, we postpone delimitation, you have rights, we recognize those, but we postpone them until there is some economic convergence, and then we can alter the state of the Lok Sabha eventually when that happens, or we can do it in a staggered fashion. But that is not an offer at the moment. Nobody is saying that in 2030 or 2035, North India will be relatively more prosperous than compared to South India. That ain't happening in UP. That ain't happening in UPA, whatever the Chief Minister of UP says. That's not happening in UP, okay? UP is not converging. Bihar is not converging. Bengal is not converging. Everything that is happening here plus Gujarat for various reasons. So we will have to propose this grand bargain and then do something about convergence. There are two other things that can happen. The second is that population, this is economists' favorite thing. Let population move here. Okay, let's equalize population and economic prosperity. Prosperous is here. Let's get population to move here. Fewer people in the north, more in the south. Basically, this means Biharis will become Telugus. Okay? अब आप लोग हैदराबाद से आपको मालूम है जब निजाम साहब ने कोशिश किया था क्या हुआ था उसके बारे में बात करूंगा अभी but Biharis become Telugus, Jharkhandis become Tamilians. Why not? My great grandfather was from Bangladesh. I'm a Maharashtrian. I'm fourth generation. I have nothing to do with Bengal. I can't even read and write the bloody language. I think in Marathi. That's feasible. That's possible. I mean, Raja Singh does. He speaks Telugu, right? So it's possible, but we need to have it at scale. I don't think this is good. Or the third, which is the prosperity of the peninsula. This is the ultimate nuclear option, if you think parochially. If you become 15 times more prosperous in the peninsula than the Great Indian Plain, 10 to 15, not 5, not 6. Now you're 3 times more prosperous. You become 15, nothing, doesn't matter what the population is. The peninsula will call all the shots. You will completely dominate the Great Indian Plain. It's not my favored option, but it's a workable option. All right? And then perhaps you can do things about lifting the Great Indian Plain up. So there are 3 scenarios. Now, here is where the same is going to abandon any hope, in my view, or create difficulties, in my view, of achieving scenarios 2 and 3. You see, there is no doubt that in the Great Indian Plain, inequality has stalled progress. No doubt at all. But inequality is also a huge impediment to further progress here in the peninsula. And the second, so just going on that point, this is a statement I made jokingly once, but it's true, I think. If you want to create a museum of inequality anywhere in the world, create it in India. You name an inequality, it is here. This is a country that is so, just think of the inequality of heredity. I'm sitting in Hyderabad, you know exactly what I'm talking about, I hope. This is such an unequal country, even the film industry is hereditary. Have you ever heard of such a thing anywhere in the world? Where children and grandchildren of film stars are the children and grandchildren of the film industry tomorrow. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. It's clownish, if you think about it. I don't understand how people with any self-respect can do anything except laugh at this. It is a laughable phenomenon, but it's true. So you have heredity of industry, you have all the usual hereditary things, but in the creative industry, to see this sort of hereditary is just patently absurd. Okay? So the South has every inequality, whether it is patriarchy, whether it is inequality of income, consumption, anything you like, that, anyone else has. So our growth explosion in South India has not been accompanied by inclusive growth or equalizing growth. So inequality is something we share with the great Indian plain. So if you look at the per capita income of Tamil Nadu, just as one example, it's 3 times that of Bihar. Bahut acha. But if you look at the average daily wage rates in agriculture, you can look at anyone, I've just taken male agriculture, it's not even double that of UP and Bihar, which means what? Your per capita income grew at 300%. Your wages grew by less than 100%. What happened to the remaining 220? It didn't go to the people who were working. It went into your gold shops here. Okay? That's where it went. It went into your real estate gains. It went into all the money that a very small segment of the population has made by legal means or otherwise. And that has been as much part of the growth story of Tamil Nadu as has been the per capita income positive story. Essentially, what I'm saying is there's a concept in economics called extractive economy, where the economy grows, but then there is extraction. This economy here, and therefore the Indian economy, because all the growth happened here, is extractive. The already rich are skimming off the majority of incomes, and this is despite the fact, so there's no magic bullet here, that the structure of the economy here is very modern. Manufacturing contributes 21% to TN's GDP, but as you can see from those numbers, the Tamil Nadu economy is extractive. Situation is better in Kerala, but that is all. I don't have time to go through all the states. I can do it in the discussion. Telangana, 72% of Telangana's per capita GDP is generated in 2 districts of Hyderabad. Okay. So basically, economic transformation in the peninsula has not led to a rise in economic prosperity. There is a difference between prosperities, vikas. वो मोदी जी ने बोला था, सबका विकास. सबका विकास यहाँ नहीं हुआ है. Just like North India, in that respect, Tamil Nadu is not different from Bihar, not different from UP, not different from Rajasthan. More, I must spend a minute on this. The difference between the richest district in of the average income of Tamil Nadu, 85,000 rupees, from the poorest district. So if let's say that the richest district in Tamil Nadu earns about 1 lakh rupees per capita income, right? So that means the poorest would earn 15,000 rupees per capita income. In Bihar, the difference is only 15,000. Now, obviously in Bihar, everybody is poor, so the differences are small. But what I'm pointing out is that 85,000 is a very large difference. Huh? It's not a small difference. If you look at Telangana, it's much worse. If you take the poorest district in Telangana with Hyderabad, or you take Bangalore urban and compare it to Raichur in Karnataka, it's much, much worse in Tamil Nadu. So Dharmapuri district in Tamil Nadu has a literacy rate which is worse than 36 districts of Uttar Pradesh. And as I said, 60% of the per capita income of Telangana and Karnataka is earned in just 3 or 4 districts of the state. So inequality, the Museum of Inequality is ubiquitous in the peninsular India as well. Now, I would like to think that it's better, but same, but different. These 2 things for me as an economist are basically impediments to growth. Patriarchy is inefficient, and misogyny is highly deficient, never mind the ethical considerations, in promoting growth, because you're basically shutting down the productivity of half your population. And frankly speaking, I mean, you just look at Mr. Prajwal Revanna, or watch one of these Telugu movies, or see how a female tourist in Kerala is treated. There is no great advancement in gender equality happening here. Okay, there may be marginal differences, but the difference is not transformational. It is certainly not at the same order of difference as the per capita income of Indonesia versus Tamil Nadu, if you look at misogyny and the reduction in it. Okay. Hyderabad, you know this, I hope you know this, is my judgment, having traveled all over India, is this city is as filthy as Patna. And man, you have to go to Patna to see what a filthy city is. Okay. But this is getting there almost, especially if you go to Barkas or Charminar or even Banjara Hills where I live. It is filthy. Except in these bizarre gated communities. And speaking of gated communities, when I looked at one, I asked somebody, I said, why is everybody's undergarments hanging out in their balconies and why can I see them? They said, Vastu. So whole of Gachibowli has been built on Vastu, apparently. All right. Now, you can't really create a modern society if you're going to do Vastu and you're going to do rubbish throwing on the road and traffic rules. This is like a I keep saying Hyderabad is a tier 1 city economically. It's like a tier 4 city otherwise. Nobody wears helmets. People drive on the wrong side of the road. Everyone's very polite when things crash. That's good, but that's about it. The traffic rules in Hyderabad, or for that matter, Kerala, are not even Indonesia levels. They're not even Sri Lanka levels. Okay, building regulations are a mess. You live in Hyderabad. Anti-polluting laws are a mess, and they're flouted with, everything is flouted with as much impunity in Chennai and Bangalore and Hyderabad as they are in Delhi, Jaipur or Kolkata. I don't see any great transformational difference between South Indian urban centers and North Indian urban centers. So if you take inequality, if you take the social conditions, I'm giving you some examples of patriarchy, misogyny, casteism, there seems to be, okay, caste, should I talk about caste? I don't think I need to talk about caste. Okay, I've now, within 6 months, I may not have learned much about Andhra Pradesh. I'm half Telugu. I know every caste and subcaste in this, in the two Telugu states by heart because I needed to survive here. Okay, I need to know who's a Kamma, who's a Reddy, who's a Velamma, who's a Kopu, who's a Komti. Okay, everything happens on that basis. Associations are formed on that basis. Restaurants are run on that basis. If I discuss in a private dinner, you know, who owns what hospitals, pat, everyone knows which Kamma owns what, which Reddy owns what, which Kapu owns what, which Komti owns what. So what is different here between Bihar and Andhra? Zilch. Nothing is different. So my conclusion is that clearly, all the things we economists thought and Mr. Amartya Sen thought, we were so wrong. Highly improved per capita income, highly improved human development has not brought about in the peninsula the kind of societal transformation that would permit progress to the next stage of prosperity. The next stage of prosperity. That is very important. When you stop being a really poor place, you become a slightly prosperous place. The next stage of prosperity is much more difficult to achieve. It involves these transformations. And in fact, so this social backwardness and inequality are actually unifying this country. What is unifying us with Bihar and UP is not our success. It's our joint failure to socially transform the peninsula and to address the inequality problem. Thank God for backwardness and inequality. It keeps the nation intact. Okay. But there is a consequence for this, which I'll conclude with. A natural consequence of this, in policy terms, talking especially to people who like to think about government, including my students here, you know that I have written about this. The Indian state, I think by about the mid-90s, early 2000s, ceased to be a development state. We have stopped doing development a long time ago. I'll do this by example. I know I keep going in and out of the country. So I came back last to work at the Finance Commission when India was shining. Vijay Mallya was a superstar. You know, everyone was drinking malt whiskey and deficits were falling and doing well. Kids here have not seen that period. It was great. I wish I was in India then. I made a mistake. Everyone, all my friends made money then. No one's made money since. There was a period between 1999 and 2008. Every one of my generation got rich. I should have been here. I was in New York. My mistake. Anyway, so I came at the cusp of that. Back to India. And I met Mr. Monte Kaluwadia, who was then our deputy chairman of the Planning Commission. I said, Monte, this Narega, I understand why I understand it and you're doing a good thing, I'm sure. Why are you doing it at the peak of our prosperity? If you're growing at 10% a year and everything is going well, why do we need an employment guarantee program? It should just happen, right? So he fluffed the question. But now I realize why. See, a lot of the things that we have done in terms of government spending, which is what I study, you know, when I'm not being political, is basically telling people as part of this great Indian story where we have all prospered, most people in this room, sorry you didn't prosper. Like I've shown you in South India, so many didn't. Here's some money. See, if you're going to be so prosperous that you have a per capita income of 4,000, all that big talk, or Telangana, you should be able to get enough money to go to a bank, get an EMI and build your own house for 10, 15 lakhs. That's not available. So what do I have? Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, KCR ka dignity housing. Why? In a market economy that's prosperous, you do not have to compensate people like this using the public exchequer. They should be able to use their own money to go and buy these things, right? I'll give you another example from Tamil Nadu. The salary of the best manufacturing job you can think of in this country, in my opinion, if you're lucky, if you're fortunate enough to get into government, that's a different matter. That's the best job to get. Work is entirely optional. But if you don't get into government and you have to work in the private sector, then the manufacturing job is great. What kind of manufacturing job will give you the best? What is the dream manufacturing job? If you just give up joining TPSC or something and becoming a police constable, what is the best thing you can do? You can work for Apple, right? You can work for Samsung, right? Those factories are in Tamil Nadu, right? You know what the median wage of somebody with 5 years work experience in Samsung or Apple is? It's 50,000 rupees a month. The average wage is lower. This is the median wage. Average is 40. 50,000 rupees a month, ladies and gentlemen, does not qualify you to be prosperous enough to pay income tax. Which means the best paid manufacturing job in this country generates a wage that is not sufficient to pay income tax. Forget prosperity. You start paying income tax at 1 lakh rupees a month. Okay? So there is no universal prosperity happening in this country, even in the leading edge places. And this is not happening in the South because Samsung and Apple are both in the South, right? This is not happening in Accenture's here in Gachibowli or whatever that fake Phoenix, Arizona that we have built here is. It's not happening in Whitefield or whatever it is in Karnataka. It is not happening in Chetan Bhagat land. There is no universal prosperity happening in this country, zilch. And that is particularly true of the South because the North never had prosperity. The plain never had prosperity anyway. So, what are the consequences? The consequences are that the peninsula punches much below its weight in terms of prosperity and social cohesion. Because the problems of lack of social cohesion and inequality are not allowing the peninsula to emancipate itself to the next phase of growth, to move from $4,500 to $8,500 per capita. You don't have the markets. We don't have the markets growing in the size they ought to. We don't have the freedom of jobs moving. We don't have dispersion. And we don't have inclusive prosperity in terms of high wages, high productivity. So we are caught, in fact, in a socio-economic middle-income trap. Let me explain this very briefly. We get all this migrant labor. This is a big bugbear of mine. I've asked politicians this. So I'll ask you, I think I've asked my students at some point, tell me the price of a cup of tea in Hyderabad. Now you see, there's no unique answer. The price of a cup of tea in Hyderabad could be 10 rupees, or it could be 40 rupees. Forget the Taj. If you go to a halfway decent formal sector shop, like something called Kamat's or, whatever, right? Forget Nilufar, okay? But something little more humble than Nilufar, not something on the road. Road is 10 rupees. Somewhere it'll be 25, 30, 40 rupees, a formal sector place. How come we have these two different prices for a cup of tea or a plate of idlis? Because although in South India you had prosperity and wages have gone up, you have a bunch of migrant labor coming here. But what are they doing? They're not actually contributing to growth by raising productivity. You're not using them for growth. You're using them essentially to enjoy feudal lifestyles. What I allude to here, which you shouldn't be doing, in Tamil Nadu, in a $4,500 per capita income state, you should not be having someone to wash your bartans by hand. All right? You should be building houses using proper modern technology. You shouldn't be having what you see on the road. All right? Pat for cement mixture, uska haath jara, and the guys like putting things together like classic informal sector. You shouldn't have these things. Your per capita income is too high. But what has happened is that we have relapsed into that feudal lifestyle. Still, 3 people, you go to any rich man's house here, 3 women are slowly, typically women, cleaning the floor. 2 Malis are sitting out there, not much work to do. 1 chap is cutting some plant. 3 people are cooking. Same feudal lifestyle, which you cannot see in a modern country. Hey, you want to be South Korea? Behave like South Koreans. Increase productivity. That is not happening. So that kind of virtuous society is being barred by social constraints and by inequality. Now, I'm almost done. So, I'm done. I've given you lots of examples of this encapsulation I'm giving you. There is a divide between the peninsula and the Great Indian Plain. It is an existential threat to the future of this country, this asymmetry between economic prosperity and political power. The solutions that I have proffered to you, let the North grow faster than the South. Ain't gonna happen because there's no plan for it. If there's a plan, I'd welcome it. It'd be interesting to know what that plan is. I see no political party whatsoever engaged in it. And I will say that the central government in this respect, no doubt, but we shouldn't waste too much time on it, because blaming is easy, doing something about it is more important, and we have agency here. The central government has been malicious and biased and destructive. Particularly in the last 10 years, seems to be bent on hegemonic control. And since the vast majority of the states of this region do not vote BJP, they want to control hegemonically, right? And that is happening. I'm not denying that. But that is only one factor, and there is plenty of agency for that factor not to be the binding constraint. But to use, and therefore to use that attempt at hegemony, I think that very pathetic and weak attempt at hegemony, easily confrontable, to overlook the very serious and real problem that we confront here in the peninsula. Because we want prosperity, we want to move to the next phase. You don't want to be left behind. You don't want to, like we constantly compare India to Pakistan, you don't want to be compared to Bihar. Right? You want to move from South Korea, you want to move from South Korea to Indonesia to South Korea, you want to move up the chain. That requires two things which we don't have and we have no idea how to get. We require better social cohesion, and in that respect, we are not much better than Bihar or UP. And we require inclusivity, which we sorely lack in our economic policy. And my plea to you, in conclusion, is, please, when we discuss North-South divides, when we do these things, let us look at ourselves. Let us look at why we are so same. And let us make this the focus of our discussions on how to move forward prosperously, both in the interest of the peninsula and obviously in the interest of the country as a whole. Thank you.
As Mr. Roy, I was also away from the country during the prosperous time. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
So my question is, since you've suggested the feudalistic lifestyle, getting the society away from the feudalistic lifestyle, what are your suggestions from the grassroots level? Is there any plan, is there any suggestion for common citizens to follow or come up with a plan so that we could, all of us could contribute in some way?
Well, we could start by not being afraid of asking some fundamental questions like, how many Dalits in this room? Next question.
Yes. Yep. The lady there.
Hello, sir. My question was, if you think that the peninsula...
Yeah, go on.
Sir, I was wondering if you think that the peninsula at least has a better shot at resolving structural issues. There must be some kind of upper hand that can be leveraged to make scenario 3 happen, do you think?
Not scenario 3. Scenario 3 is not going to happen because that involves really fast growth. Before that, we have to go to scenario 2. And there you are as much, I think this is a question for your generation, not mine, because my generation, my contemporaries, I'm almost 60, we are casteist, fairly misogynist, better than I suppose the previous generation, I hope so. I'm talking about the peninsula. But I'll say one thing about the peninsula, which includes my own state, which always puzzles me. See, I'll take the example of education. In my view, education never happened through technocratic change. Take Hyderabad. Name the colleges of Hyderabad. They're not called Ministry of Human Resource Development College 1, MHRD College 2, or something like that, right? What are they called? What are the names of the colleges here? Nizam College, okay. What else? Come on. So they're called after certain people, and why they're called after certain? Because colleges, whether in Delhi where I studied, or in Bombay, Jai Hind College, Hindu College, Kirodimal College, Pachiyappa's College in Chennai, these were set up by individuals in the social space, right? So education, once upon a time we had education, not just skill acquisition, was a social movement. And the idea was that you get educated and therefore you get a job. Now, part of the idea that education therefore should be universal would obviously be then to try and address, you could either gate it, many colleges did that, or you could address it by being more inclusive in who you admitted, how you interacted, where you lived, right? So those social movements are very important in South India, and my hypothesis, particularly in Kerala, is that those social movements had a lot to do with Kerala's superiority in human development. And a lot to do also, I think, in many of our states with the pressure to improve human development consciously relative to the North. The North was far more impoverished in terms of social movements than the South was. So I think there is a lesson to be learned there. I don't have an answer, obviously. There's a lesson to be learned there. But the ultimate lesson to learn is, for me, is a national one, which in the South we should reflect on. I now understand fully what Ambedkar meant by annihilate caste. There's no point ameliorating caste or dealing with caste or, sort of keeping caste on the back burner or making sure that caste is not an impediment. You actually have to annihilate it. How that will be done, I don't really know. Because I have no clue. If I did, I'd do something about it. But I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, so my question was that inequality is not just prevalent, economically, but for India is also prevalent politically. So my question is that if there's so much inequality and so much despair in our society, why is it that the general population still remains so silent and docile almost?
I would not be able to answer that question. I can tell you it has nothing to do with their being poor. You should see the docility of some of my peers. First-class chamchas there. You really should see that. So nothing to do with income. You see the docility of FICCI. Once I had some award they were giving me. I was in Sultanate, courtier city, Delhi. And my then current minister, Arun Jaitley, was there. And I remember his name, Rashesh Shah from Edelweiss. Arun Jaitley had missed his deficit target. And Rashesh Shah was doing chamchagiri and saying what a great man he was to miss his deficit target. So Arun Jaitley, when he got up to speak, he looked at him and said, Mr. Shah, I'm not happy about missing my target. I think I did a bad thing. I'm very sorry I couldn't meet my target. So but you see, in terms of, it's not income, it's not social status. In fact, sometimes they're the worst. I think one of the problems, of course, I have a interesting explanation for this, which, I don't have time, I have 2 minutes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, let me give you a quick history. Why do you think people like government service so much? It's not very nice to work in government, or is it? Being a police constable, going salam all the time, going yes sir, no sir, BDO sir, car sir. It's not productive use of your day, your average government servant's day. Why is it that those occupations are so heavily desired? It's nothing to do with lack of jobs. What Indians lack, other than caste and biradri, is identity. I noticed this when I was a member of the Pay Commission. What is most comforting to somebody in government services, they have an identity. A Jawan knows he's a Jawan. He is, he knows what he is relative to the NCO and the rest of the population who have no identity. He's better than them. Above him, there's an NCO. Above him, there's a JCO. Similarly, the Tehsildar knows, and the BDO or whatever it is, the constable, the DSP. That is one. That is one very important part of being in government. And the second, and therefore what you do, is you create an entire system where you say you can emancipate yourself from the costs of not being a winner by trying to become a winner, on which caste no bar, age no bar, education qualification no bar, brain no bar, merit no bar. Just take exams. Take them from the age of 18. First go to quota now and take them to the age of 12. Let me ruin your childhood also. Go to quota, take exams from the age of 12. Go to coaching class, take exams from the age of 18. I'll keep raising the age limit. 28, 31, 32, 33, whatever. Top of the rung is IAS. Bottom of the rung is the primary school teacher for some bizarre reason, because that person actually has to be more qualified than an IAS officer. They need a B.Ed. IAS officer just has to have a BA in Sanskrit. All right? That's deliberate, by the way. So as many people can apply as possible. Now, millions of people apply, about 1,000 get in. The rest have spent their whole life taking exams. Where is the opportunity to think? Where is the chance to resist? Where is the chance to emancipate yourself when you are the most young? Universities, private universities in the South, which I love, they have no politics, because politics is a dirty word. You must study, don't do politics. But if you're young, if you don't do politics, when are you going to do it? When you're 60 like me, politics mat karo, padho. Then you go into job karo, don't do politics. So you're not allowed to participate and question in a democratic space where at your age you ought to be, because we are killing you with this national security, forgive me, Praveen, this national security initiative of a system of competitive exams which will suck you in, suck out all your spirit of resistance, and leave you completely unequipped either to better yourself in society at the age of 30, by some chance, not gotten into these exams, or, but certainly you're not going to be able to engage politically. And then what happens? Politics becomes a family business. There is only one party in this country so far where politics is not a family business, right? And you have to think about how that happened. Think very hard about how that happened. And then you will see why. It's a process of exclusion that is as in running an unequal society as anything else. And the worst thing you can do, the worst inequality you can have, is the exclusion of the young from participation in politics.
We can take just one more question. I see a hand right here.
Hello, sir. I am Anandi, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm a grade 11 student, and I actually noticed a thing which you said in your talk and also in our society that, like you mentioned just now, most of our youth, I think all of our youth, my friends, the classmates around me, all of them, I think I would include me too. All of us are living in a bubble where we're just talking about the hatred and sorting out the differences between us. Um, Whereas our aim, like you said, should be on bridging the gap between our economies or thinking about stuff that actually matters and what would help our future. So I would like to ask you, what was one thing or one advice you would like to give to my generation?
Thank you. That's a fantastic question. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to take 1 extra minute. But I will answer that by giving you a very interesting example from our constitution. You've asked me a grand question. I can only give you a grand answer. I can unpack it later. Our constitution preamble, which you must have read, I hope you have, speaks of 3 things, 3 qualities that we must embody as a nation: liberty, inequality, and fraternity. But notice in the preamble, in the very preamble, the constitution enjoins it upon the state to secure the liberty of its citizens, to foster, to bring about equality between citizens. These are tasks of the government. And to promote fraternity. Promote is not a task. You can't tell your, as a line manager, you can't tell your worker, go and promote production, right? That's not a task. Why is he saying that? Why does the Constitution say that? The Constitution says that. It's a very interesting essay by Dr. Ambedkar called On Fraternity. Possibly, there are exactly 4 things written on this subject since independence, bizarrely enough, because what this country lacks, whether it's the caste system, it's misogyny, whether it's communalism, it's anything else, is fraternity. Hindi mein kehte hai bhaichara. So, the promotion of fraternity is everybody's job. It is the job of society, it is the job of the individual, it is the job of the family. What has happened in your generation, of course, is that there are 2 or 3 challenges to this. One, because we're a scarcity economy, you have been told, as a precautionary measure, to worry first about yourselves, then about your parents, then about your children, then about your extended family. That's how we think. Now, if you're going to be a successful nation state and a successful society, we will have to think beyond that. We cannot all be atomized clusters of, family biradris, right? So what you can do to cross this is to ask uncomfortable questions. How many Dalits did you meet and talk to today? How many Muslims do you know and work with? When you talk to people who are less poor than you, what is it that you talk about? Is the relationship equal? Do you talk about things in common? Do you make the effort to talk about common things? These are fraternal. How do you deal with people when you're on the road? How do you deal with people when it comes to traffic? How do you judge people by the way they look, they dress? Do you talk about these things? Now, what happened with social media and with globalization, it's happened to me, is that we don't need to do this because we can gate ourselves. It's ultimate gating. And talk to only people we like and fight with people we don't like, but at one remove. Which is why Manthan probably faced this problem with your social media thing, because that creates a distance. It's much more difficult for me to talk to you rudely because of the way you're dressed than to talk to you, than to comment on the way you're dressed based on a photo in Facebook, right? That's a contemporary challenge you'll have to face. But ultimately, it is fraternity and only fraternity that is going to help your generation solve this problem. It is what we did not have. It is what generation before me did not have. And to reclaim this country, I think it is something that you can all work on. I'm happy to elaborate on this later. But read that essay and look at our preamble, just our preamble, very carefully to understand the responsibility it places on us as individuals and as a society and a community. Thank you.
Question to you is, there's one word that was missing in the solutions that you spelt out. Feudalism. You have completely ignored the fact that all the factors that you spoke of, including casteism, so on and so forth, are a derivative of our feudalist past. And we still claim, we still hang on to the evils of that system. Your comments?
I agree with you. I think you're right. I haven't looked at it. In fact, if you like, there's one thing that is different from feudalism today as opposed to feudalism yesterday. Those who are genuine feudals here, I hope there are some, will know that you're supposed to exploit the people who are under you, your serfs. They're supposed to make sure they don't die and fall sick and give their children some reasonable education, right? There's some basic reciprocity in the social contract that feudalism involves. Now, wo bhi chala gaya hai. So you have feudalism without benefits.
Yeah, here's another question. Friends, don't go away because chai hasn't come yet, so please sit. I'll tell you as soon as tea arrives.
Morning. My question is regarding if the solutions you've provided, if they don't work out, would this country also go like Yugoslavia or USSR? What do you think about this? Because there is, as you showed with real statistics and data, possibilities of a large number of people being discontented if this continues to happen. A lot of tax money from the south is given to the north. Recently, a bullet train map, proposed map or something had come out. There was no mention of any bullet train in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, like little bits of covered, but till Bihar there was, a proposed bullet train or something. So, what is the chance? I just wanted to know that. Thank you.
I will answer that question like someone who is jailed by the police and knows they're not going to get bail for the next 150 years answers. I have great faith in the judiciary. So like that I'll say I have great faith in India. और कुछ नहीं बोलूँगा, कोई जेल में डाल देगा.
There's a gentleman here waiting. After him.
Sir, excuse me, sir. I'm coming from Kakinada.
My mother's from there.
My name is Krishna Mohan. I'm asking one curiosity doubt because of is a society facing so many troubles in nowadays. But I want to ask one question straightly. What is your answer to the problem of ending economic inequality in today's society? What is your straight answer? So it is a bullet, like a bullet answer.
Yeah, before we have that straight answer, we'll take another question. He can answer that together.
Right. I'll give you a bullet answer.
Namaste, sir. I am also from nearby Kakinada area. I am a retired government officer. Presently, I am a stand-up comedian. So on that route only I came.
4 o'clock.
Coming there.
I'll see you at 4 o'clock.
For any government job, we need age limit and qualification. Without any age limit or qualification, lakhs of rupees we are giving salary to the government, all these politicians, and pension also. Instead, I have an idea. For every service, there is a tax. For every service, there is service tax. See, the politicians say, we are serving the country. Why can't we collect some service tax from all those politicians?
Now your bullet answer.
Okay, my bullet answer to you, it's a very good question, sir, thank you, is if you hire anybody in your house, or an electrician, or a plumber, or a carpenter, or a taxi driver, an Uber driver, a vegetable seller, anybody, pay them 20% more from tomorrow, yourself. And for the state as a whole, make sure that wages are a policy objective, incomes are a policy objective, and make sure the share of wages compared to profits goes up. And number 3, impose a service tax on all gold sales and all real estate transactions immediately worth 200%. My policy target should be that gold shops in Hyderabad should half. Then you'll be on the inclusive growth path. Every gold shop that opens is a testimony to the lack of inclusive growth. On service tax for politicians, no, I don't think you can tax politicians because you are already taxing politicians in terms of their time, their effort, etc. With government servants, minimum qualification necessary, but not sufficient, no? How does it matter whether you have minimum qualification or you take a giant exam? So you can't do a BA in something and join government. There's a giant exam you've got to take. So that giant exam, I hope you're not contesting. It's a very important national security measure. If we don't take that, lots of young people dissatisfied, there'll be a revolution in the country. Let them go on taking those exams. The service tax with politicians won't work because the deal is You vote for them and then they tax you. You take out something you want from when you vote for them. You can't tax them at the same time.
I believe in equality, so 2 questions, one gentleman there and one lady here. Shankar, after the lady, please.
Hi.
Hi, Shankar. 2 minutes. After the lady, you can ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want your thoughts on the DBTs, the direct benefit transfers which are there in South India especially, and the impact of taking loans and filling in the deficits in the state budgets continuously.
Okay.
Shankar, what do you want to?
Yeah. What connects north to south is probably religion and rituals, which is a big elephant in the room. The time which Indians spend going to temples and rituals, which we noticed recently, the crowds, the stampedes and all that. What is your take on that in terms of social change? Is there something which we can do to push people away from this? It's a tough ask, but what is your take on that?
You see, there's religion and ritual. So I come from a state where I think we have a very inclusive ritual and a very exclusive one in Maharashtra. The inclusive ritual is the annual pilgrimage that goes from somewhere near Pune. People come from all over to Pandharpur and Tulzapur. It's part of the old Bhakti movement. And that is a celebration of joy. It is not casteist at all. In fact, that's the antithesis of casteism. The tolis tend to be mixed. They tend to mix on the way. And it is not intrusive. At the same time, you have Ganesh Chaturthi, which has become in Bombay and Pune a place for politicians, all this Lal Bagh Cha Raja bullshit, for all these for politicians and basically kids. See, you must remember one thing, that religion and religious ritual performance, many such things, they give a lot of low status young people a chance to feel good, to feel high status. That brief moment, they have power. Okay, they have agency in a life that is normally marked without agency. So I'm a little more sympathetic to this. Because, this is a break from your normal day. Your normal day, you wake up in the morning, you go, somebody's torturing you, get into a bus, you're nobody. You complain to somebody, you're nobody. Somebody's asking for a bribe, you're nobody. You go to a hospital, you're nobody. From morning to night, you're nobody. So when you become part of some kind of Batukamma or some kind of, religious festival or Eid or something like that, you get a sense of self-worth. So I wouldn't entirely knock them. We can discuss how to do them in a better way, and there are better ways, like the Bhakti movement I mentioned. Now, to come to your 2 very interesting questions, on the loan thing, it's too long to discuss. It's not a problem. It's not a problem because the state government cannot go bankrupt. Now, that's a different question of what you're doing with the loan. But taking loans in principle is not an issue at all. I have no issue with it. Kill yourself, take loans. Nothing's going to happen to you because ultimately your loans are guaranteed by the central government. Central government restricts the amount of loans you can take. So if you must take loans from the you must take loans from the hilt, take them. But the more important question is how you're spending that money, which comes to DBT. Now with DBT, you see, let me put it, there are 2 answers to this. One is the correct answer. The correct answer is that DBT is a scandal. I've written about this. In a country where we have not reached our full potential. The idea of DBT normally is, in a country, the majority of people are employed at decent wages. Some people are not. Some people are unable to participate in the workforce. Some people are old. Some people are ethnically disadvantaged. But there are some people, a minority. Therefore, you have a floor income that covers everybody, which is paid for by the people who are earning money. But in a country where the majority of people are going to get DBT, that's a ludicrous idea. The only way the majority can prosper is not through subsidy, but through earning more. So I think a wage policy, getting more wages, is much more important, is much more crucial than a DBT, and a DBT is a distraction. Having said that, I would say, as a second order condition, if you have failed to achieve that inclusive economic growth, then you are better off providing these DBTs to people for want of anything better to do. Now, I hope you will agree. Let me take one example. I'll take example of 2 policy measures, both of which I support. One is the free bus for women here, and the other is cycles for girls in Bihar, years ago, Nitish Kumar. That is not going to end misogyny. Misogyny will end, it requires much more fundamental and deep action. But confronted with misogyny, confronted with continuous discrimination against women, better than doing nothing is to give a free bus pass, to increase agency, and to give young school kids cycles, girls who go to school cycles, to increase their agency and improve their autonomy. Since we are not able to do anything in the society about patriarchy, it's a horrible admission of failure. We have failed in addressing patriarchy, but as a palliative, I do not mind such direct benefit transfers. Okay? Thank you.
Vikram just told me that Manthan was trying an experiment with truth which is not working. Today, of all days, experiment with truth was changing our caterer. And our caterer hasn't arrived with his tea. So we can break immediately for 10 minutes, or we can take one last question and then you have a break. And we promise you good lunch. You'll have a little break. Please bear with us. So I see one question there. Rathin, please hold forth.
Yeah, no worries.
This gentleman here is already standing. Yeah.
My name is Muhammad Fazil. I'm a PhD scholar in the Department of Sociology, Manu. So I would like to ask the question like, do you think that our nation has failed, okay? And we have many affirmative actions like reservation. So how many more years it will take to get the full benefit of that to all the citizens?
Let me answer the first. On reservations, you see, again, there's a phrase in French, for the main, for want of anything better. Let me give you one example, and you can get into endless discussions on this. You know what percentage of chief secretaries and top people in the government of India are Dalit? It's very small, since low single digits. Why? You have 25% reservation at the bottom. Now you ask a smart IAS officer, one of my contemporaries, oh, because they joined very late. We joined. I said, why do you join early? You're on the Tamram Iyengar, so you joined early. Why did he join or she join late? To explore those questions. So what happens is you just take reservations for granted. What is happening is that you're giving reservations to people at the entry level, and you're giving reservations to people to jobs which the elites don't want anymore. Right? And then in any case, the most successful place where you have reservations is, to some extent, reservations work is in the public sphere. Can anyone guess? Really successful compared to the IAS. In terms of the outcome you want, which is you want more Dalit secretaries, right? I do. So if you agree with me, that has failed. Where has it succeeded? Guess what? Judiciary. Why? Why are there relatively more SC and ST and OBC judges in the judiciary and minority judges as compared to the IAS? Because they reserve right all the way up. When they appoint High Court judges, they look at caste balance, they look at gender balance. When they appoint Supreme Court judges, they look at caste balance, look at gender balance. The rest of the country, you provide reservations at the bottom end, people get in and then you forget about them, right? So reservations are not going to be a lasting solution. In terms of your question on has India failed, I grew up in Bombay and I grew up near Bollywood. So I have this picture mentality. So all my life, and if you look at most countries in the world, I won't use words like failed, but most countries in the world end up in this, this phrase Patal Bhairavi. Every religion has it. It's called purgatory in Christianity. I don't know what's called Islam. Something between heaven and hell. You're neither in hell nor in heaven. That is the fate of most countries. All right. So you end up like with $8,000 per capita, but you have crime, Brazil. You have bad politics, Philippines. You become well known all over the world for tourism and being the biggest producer of chickens, Thailand. All right. You become like Egypt. You become like Argentina. So most developing countries in the world end up in this dead zone. Most. There are very few developing countries that have, other than the rich countries, that have made the transition to being fully rich successfully. So growing up, I was born in 1966, I used to always say to myself, in Bollywood terms, 20s, 30, ye picture abhi baki hai. In the old days when we made movies, we used to make them with reels. Say, 18 reel nahi aaya. Movies would be 16 to 20 reels. So we are still in the 8th reel, 9th reel. Things are going bad. Like it happens before the interval in movies. Tragedy, hero is getting beaten up, villain is doing well. Okay. So I saw all this happening. Then liberalization happened. There was some prosperity. I said, picture badal raha hai. Prosperity is coming. Ab mujhe lag raha hai, at this time, that we have maybe another 10 years. ये पिक्चर फिर उसके बाद बाकी नहीं होगा, which is the end of my life more or less. What does that mean? That does not mean they're all going to be like, some Hindi movie again, poor, desolate, maa, mujhe khana do. No. We'll be a middle income country. We'll have about $8,000 per capita. Some of you will be richer than you are today. All right? Some of you will drive as big cars as you drive today, or whatever you drive, then go on Hyperloop. Business class travel demand will keep going up. But you will have the same problems as a poor country has. Let me name 5 of them in 2035. Then we will have failed, in my opinion. You will not have footpaths to walk on. You don't have footpaths today, you will not have a footpath. You will still live like third world people. You'll have a large BMW, you will have potholes, and you will drive your BMW up the footpath because there's no footpath, right? That is so third world, man, just think about it. That is not what a rich country does, okay? That's not what prosperity means. This is living a bad life, okay? You will be gated. Your water will be gated. Aquaguard will double, okay? Your electricity will be gated. Your security will be gated. You will live a totally gated life. You will not be able to walk on a lake, all right, without going privately. You will still have politicians and IAS officers getting special darshan in Tirupati instead of having proper Sarvajanik system where everyone gets darshan properly, all right? That is a failed country. And it's not India. Every country is like that, or most countries are like that. There's a very small minority of countries which succeed. The tragedy for me is most of my life, I saw us with a good chance of getting out. Now I think the window is closing. Not my problem anymore. Over to you.
Rathin, thank you so much for this absolutely wonderful talk and for holding forth for so long. Our tea still hasn't arrived. Friends, we will break. We will have a 10-minute break. I'm very, very sorry about the tea situation, but if you're lucky and it comes, then you will have a cup of tea. Please come back to the hall for the next talk by Mr. Colin Gonzalez and be here in 10 minutes. Thank you once again, Rathin. Thanks.